Okay. That chair just broke. All right. We're off to a funny start. Notice how I said we're off to a funny start instead of using some other kind of word? It keeps the mood light. I mean, this chair just broke as I sat down in it, just as we're getting started. But my choice of words was intentional, and that's going to be all of what tonight is about word power, about how words can uplift us. Wouldn't you agree? Using some words can be very uplifting. Like if you say, I'm awake and ready, it makes you feel awake and ready, doesn't it? Now, if you say the word tired, doesn't the word tired almost make you feel more tired? So do you notice the energetic influence of the words we choose? Some words can lift us up, some words can bring us down. It's like they put us under a spell. That's going to be tonight's topic. But first, I got to get us another chair. Look at this. Look at this thing. Okay. What a curious evening. Today's topic is called word magic. It's all about developing awareness of the transformative and magical properties of the words we use. Yeah, that's right. It's all about increasing our strength and motivation through even better word choices so we can live our best life. And it's going to be about purifying our word choices so we can detox our minds, bodies, and spirit. Sounds very holistic, doesn't it? We'll get into that later. These here are the 4 orphans. You see them all together. Their mom disappeared weeks ago, but earlier in the summer, she introduced them to me. And so I guess I'm the only adult figure they know right now, sad but true. And so they show up here for support. And they get that in the form of mental toughness talks combined with snacks. Probably not what they were expecting. So, true or false? The words we use can shape the way that other people see us. It's very true. A really important example of this is swearing. There's a bias that if you swear, people just assume that you're disrespectful, that you're aggressive, and that you're less intelligent. So we need to be careful of the words we use. Come on. Now, there might be instances where there is some value to swearing, but for the most part, there's a negative prejudice and many assumptions people make about those who swear. Words shape the way that people see us. We need to relate to the reality of other people and be careful with our words, because our words can have disturbing energy on others and can make them think less of us potentially. So have you ever noticed how the words we use can reinforce the stress, tension, and frustration we're carrying? Like, the word choices can increase mental tension, and mental tension could create physical tension. Ironically, by constantly referring to something as a pain in the butt, you might develop sciatica. By referring to other people as a pain in the neck, you might develop neck symptoms, you know? If somebody feels like they've been overlooked at work, they might feel like they've been stabbed in the back. They might develop low back symptoms as a result of their unspoken resentments. This isn't to say our word choices influence every ache in the body, but there is a curious link. It's as if the mind listens to the story that the body is repeating and physically mirrors it. A big step to resolving unnecessary tension in the body is to resolve unnecessarily tense language. Believe it or not, through the mind-body link. No, I get you. I got a raccoon hanging off my shirt right now. It's also believed that our mind and our focus and our words direct the flow of subtle energy in the body, life force energy, and can influence us physically in that way as well. But I mean, words are powerful. Who knows how powerful they are? A number of stories of creation say that it all began with words. Let there be light, Om. So who knows what realities and outcomes we create for ourselves through our word choices. And this conversation is all going to be about how to use our words and harness the power of them skillfully and strategically. True or false, the words we use can influence our deepest held beliefs. Think about it this way. If you say to somebody, "You made me do it," you might actually start believing it. And you might start believe you're a victim, and then you surrender your power, you're weakening yourself. In truth, nobody makes us do anything. We have our own choices. But if we use that kind of language, we might start believing it, the way that we're narrating our reality. Also, think about this. The minute the word "the" was invented, somebody put the word "the" in front of Bible. And what was more inclusive, Bible, then became the Bible. And in subtle ways, this influenced people's thought patterns. The word "the" creates a risk of separation and dogma. It implies our version of the Bible is right and all the rest are wrong because ours is the Bible. All of a sudden, no other Bibles were valid because we had the Bible. And no other truths were valid, even though all the holy books were sharing the same core truths. And people were being killed in the name of the Bible. And horrible things done to innocent people because of the word "the" added in front of Bible. One word, most destructive word in all of humanity, has been the word "the," which asserts separation instead of unity. Okay, so let's go through some examples of how to substitute in more empowering word choices. All right, let's say there's a bunch of policy changes at work. You might say, "I was devastated by the policy changes." Can you feel the negative impact and charge behind saying devastated? Now try saying this instead. "I was inconvenienced by the policy changes." Do you notice that using the word inconvenienced instead of devastated takes quite a bit of the sting out of the way we're narrating reality? A common example when people get upset is road rage, right? People might say, "I'm enraged that other people aren't following the rules of the road." Well, yeah, you notice how saying you're enraged heightens your rage? But what if you said, "I'm fascinated how other people are not following the rules of the road"? Using the word fascinated instead of enraged brings in a sense of curiosity. It takes the sting out of it again. Because all of a sudden we're curious, like, what makes people do what they do? Like, why do they think the rules don't apply to them? Like, what is it like to be these people? Right? We shift from anger to curiosity, which is much more useful for us. After all, maybe some people aren't following the rules of the road because somebody's got a wife who's in labor and they're trying to get her to the hospital, or there's a medical emergency. We don't know the story. Let's just be curious instead of judgmental. Or when it comes to work, you might say, "I have to go to these online meetings." Now this can bring in a little bit of resentment if you say, "I have to go to these online meetings." What if we changed it to, "I get to do online meetings," which means I can do it from the comfort of my own home without taking travel time out or going into work even. We start to go from feeling like a little victim-y to feeling more grateful. I get to go to online meetings because I have a job. Some people don't have jobs. See how it shifts us to gratitude just through word choices? And gratitude leads to happiness. So using better words can increase our happiness in life, and I would submit to you that you and everybody you care about really at the end of the day just wants happiness. Now another example might be to say, I hate rap music. If you say that, do you notice how it brings a disturbing energy in you just to say that? Hate is such a strong, polarizing word. But what if instead we just said, rap music is not my favorite? We're still getting the point across. Or you might say, I'm still learning to appreciate rap music. It's a long journey. You know, these are much better word choices. It helps us maintain our inner peace. I still have all 10 fingers tonight, feeding these raccoons. I know that these can be considered vicious creatures. They have very sharp, razor-sharp claws, by the way. Never been bit, really, by them. I've had them put their teeth on me in like a pretend bite before, but not anything serious. Now let's get some practice on doing this. Let's pretend you're spotting somebody else. And they say, I'm really furious about this. What different word choices could we offer them? Could we say, hey, are you furious or are you a smidge cranky? Are you furious or are you a little cross? You know, that makes me think of a tiny crucifix, which is kind of cute and endearing. Are you furious or are you a wee bit down? You know, when you use the word wee bit down, like wee, it's kind of fun, right? Or you could say, are you furious or are you peeved? Peeved is a really funny word too. So think about it in these moments. What other words could you use? What other words could you encourage others to use? What if you say, I'm depressed? Saying I'm depressed puts us under a spell because we're not technically depressed. We're in a state of depression, but we're not depressed. We shouldn't identify our whole beingness with it. It's even more disempowering to say that. What else could we say? We could say, I'm in recovery mode. We could say, I'm pulling myself together. You know, I'm having a character building moment in my life. I'm a wee bit bummed. You know, like wee bit bummed is also kind of funny. It's the word wee, it's like a little bit bummed. Kind of a funny word, right? These are all different ways to communicate it that help us maintain our peace. One thing that gets people down is the idea of being rejected. So let's say you applied for a job and you got rejected, or you asked somebody out on a date and you got rejected. What else could we say instead of rejected? What do you think? You know, we might say, I got redirected to where I belong next. I got deflected. We could say, I'm exploring other opportunities now. Or we could say, I'm developing patience for those who are still learning to see my value. Right? There's definitely other ways to communicate it that are a little bit more encouraging. You know, sometimes people say, I have back pain. And I feel like that puts us under a spell. The minute we say, I have back pain, it seems catastrophic because, oh no, is it going to get worse? And those worries and concerns, ironically, might make it worse because it's just going to add to the frustrations, right? What else could we say? Instead of I have back pain, what do you think? How about my back is talking to me? My back is trying to teach me something. Maybe it's trying to teach me how not to bend or how to eat better so I don't get intestinal inflammation that leads to back pain. Maybe we could say, I'm shedding some karma in my back right now. What do you think we could say instead of I have back pain? Let's try practicing using some of that terminology. What about saying, I have a problem? When somebody says, I have a problem, it almost stresses us out to hear it, doesn't it? It gives a ripple effect of disturbance. What else could we say instead of, I have a problem? How about I have a mystery to solve? I have a curious challenge. I have an opportunity. Or I'm in the middle of figuring something out. Notice how these are all more encouraging and elevating and uplifting than saying, I have a problem. Once again, words are magic. First 4 letters in spelling is spell. Here's another example of words. You know, a lot of times people might say, how are you? And sometimes we'll say, fine, I'm okay. You know, you might say, oh, I could have been better. Whatever. But how can we respond to that question in a way that puts a smile on somebody's face? Just to spread a little joy out there in the world, so there's more joy going around, so there's a greater chance of that joy coming back to us. Right? There you go. Maybe we could say, I'm even better now that you're here. That'll put a smile on somebody's face. Or, I'm good if you're good. Or you could say, I'm feeling turbocharged. Or I'm jazzed or fired up. Or I'm happy as a clam. Right? When I was in Rishikesh, India, you know, whenever you walk into the stores and shops and everything, people don't say hello. You know what they say all day long? Victory to God. All day long. What does that do? That instills confidence in God, because you're hearing victory to God all day long. People were a little less anxious, a little bit more faith in that area of the world, probably because they're constantly reminding themselves of confidence in God. Now imagine this. Imagine you want your children not to forget to bring some certain items to school. Let's say they got to bring like a permission slip to school. Instead of saying, don't forget to bring your permission slip to school, which implants in their mind the term forget and associates it to the permission slip, what else might we say instead of don't forget? How about, please do your best to remember? Or how about, if you want to succeed in going to that field trip, you need to remember to bring the permission slip to school if you want to succeed. Do you see how that brings in different word choices that get linked in the brain and possibly have a better chance of success? This is the one adult raccoon here. So there's one adult, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 babies. Oh my goodness. Now she's got 3 babies. 4 of them are the orphans. And then there's another 2 that are orphaned that I believe are Dora's babies. So anyway, who knows who all these baby raccoons belong to. This is daycare right now. These are all of these things are babies. One adult right there. All the rest babies. Isn't this ridiculous? This is a fun part, because we're going to take words that you may sometimes use and we're going to find better alternatives for them. Okay, so think about the different suffering emotions you go through and the words you use to describe it. Like, sometimes I feel afraid, sometimes I feel overwhelmed, sometimes I feel exhausted. Like, think about those kinds of words. We want to get them on the radar, okay? And I'll go through some examples with you. Instead of saying I'm anxious, maybe we could say I'm a wee bit concerned. That's the only one that'll be able to eat that watermelon, the one adult. Everyone else rejected it. There you go, Olive. You get into that. Not a girl. Okay. Maybe instead of saying I'm afraid, we could say I'm finding my courage. Or you could say that I'm cautiously aware. Right? Instead of saying, I've got some bad karma, which almost sounds like you're cursing yourself, what else might we say instead of bad karma? We could say, I've got some uncomfortable karma, or some inconvenient karma. After all, there's not really any such thing as bad karma, because all of it teaches us lessons. right? What about instead of saying I'm confused, we just tend to leave it there. We say I'm confused and we become complacent in our confusion and complacent in our ignorance. Maybe we could say I'm gaining clarity about this issue. I'm gaining clarity about how to perform this technical aspect of my job. I'm gaining clarity about how to do my taxes. Sounds a lot better than I'm confused about this, I'm confused about that, I'm confused about whatever. Okay, you might say, I'm disgusted with somebody's eating habits. You go out to dinner with somebody and all of a sudden you see they're just eating like a raccoon or whatever. Instead of saying, I'm disgusted with their eating habits. Oh, I met your new boyfriend. I'm disgusted with his eating habits, right? How about we just say, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised with his eating habits. Oh my gosh, he just puts all that food in there and carries on a conversation, food flying all over the place. I'm really surprised, right? We're still getting the point across. Now here's something, people will say this all the time. People will say, I failed. Oof, that's disheartening, isn't it? Try that on for size. Try saying I failed. It's like trying on a piece of constricting clothing that doesn't fit. What else might we say instead of I failed? We could say, I am learning to succeed, or I haven't succeeded yet. Or, I'm getting an education. You can do it. Come on, climb up there. I put treats up there for you. Look at this little thing. You're not failing at climbing that. You're learning to succeed. Now, I've met a few people who are what you would call reactive people. They can be a little bit of loose cannons, okay? I've met a lot of people like this, actually. So, but if they say I'm reactive or I'm easily triggered, it almost justifies it. It almost justifies a lack of trying to be better. And it's just like a state we all have to accept, including them. It's not really a good way to describe them. How about saying this? Instead of saying I'm a reactive person, how about I'm a passionate person that is learning wisdom and patience, right? Because people get reactive because they really want something. And they just have to be wiser and more patient about how to get it. Now, another thing where people get like really stalled is they'll say, oh, I feel really guilty about this. I feel really guilty about that. So they basically resign themselves to inactivity because of their guilt. I'm guilty about this. I'm guilty about that. This is another adult raccoon, and I don't know who it is. And I'm hand feeding it, but this is a big adult right here. She saw the party and she came over. Oh, you might be a he. Okay. Instead of saying I feel guilty, how about I'm learning from my mistakes and I'm preparing to act. That's the best thing to do with guilt. Learn from it and turn guilt into educated action. You might call yourself an impatient person. Well, that's almost putting yourself under a curse to say that, isn't it? We're really identifying with one of our limitations. How about we say this? I'm really passionate about what I'm anticipating. Now, instead of saying I screwed something up, you could say I had a clarifying moment. Instead of saying I'm lonely, you could say I'm temporarily on my own and I'm learning the power of solitude. Instead of saying overwhelmed, say that you're maximized. It's a good problem to have. You have a very full life. You got a very full plate with lots of things on it. I'm maximized. And then instead of saying you're exhausted or tired, just say, I'm recharging. I'm recharging. I get maximized and then I recharge. I get maximized and then I recharge. That's much more encouraging than say, I get overwhelmed and I get exhausted. I get overwhelmed and I get exhausted. See what I'm saying? Never say that you're sick either. Say that you're detoxing, you're healing. I'm in a healing state. Because a lot of times our sickness is the body just getting the toxins out. There's different ways to describe that state. I'm detoxifying. I'm healing. Much more encouraging. And is technically true. Another thing that can kind of seem like a negative term is stepdad or stepmom. It's almost like you're not the real thing, right? You're not the real dad or real mom. I don't like that word choice. I don't think it accurately represents the bond and the connection between people that goes beyond blood. I think a better term is, instead of saying you're the stepdad, you're the spirit dad. Instead of the stepmom, the spirit mom. Spirit is thicker than blood. Now, if somebody's being really mean and grumpy and cranky to everybody one day, instead of describing it like that, we could just say, they're having an off day. You know, we're not defining them by one day only. You're not a cranky, grumpy person necessarily, or a mean person. You're just having an off day. We're giving them benefit of the doubt. An out of character day, perhaps. Now, any major challenge or difficulty in life, instead of calling it a major tragedy, a major setback or anything, we can call all of it fierce grace. All of it fierce grace. So how might we use all of this moving forward? Step 1, increase your self-awareness. Introspect. Observe yourself. Observe the language you use. Find better word substitutes is step 2. Find better word substitutes and use some of the examples I have here, or you can always get a thesaurus or search online. Find different word substitutes that are more uplifting. Get a spotter. Get people to call you out and correct you on your word choices. Hey, do you hate country music, or is country music not your favorite? Right? And be a spotter for other people if they'll let you. If they'll let you help mold them into a better version of themselves with correction. We can do a better job of stepping in to spot people on the way they describe their reality. You know, maybe they signed up for a timeshare that they regretted signing up for, and they're like, look, they basically put a gun to my head and made me do it. It's like, okay, hold on. That's not true. What gun? What type of gun? Oh, there's no gun? Okay, don't tell yourself that, because you'll believe it and you'll weaken yourself and you'll never get what you want in life. They didn't put a gun to your head and make you do it. They just gave you uncomfortable pressure and you caved in. That's it. Nobody put a gun to your head. Don't tell yourself that. Your body, your mind, body, spirit is going to start believing it. To your cells, your words are the voice of God. Be careful with your words. Be impeccable with your words. You know, somebody might say, they totally killed me in that interview. I totally got killed on that test. You know, we could spot somebody by saying, hold on, what did they kill you with? Show me the wounds. Hold on, you're here right now. So how could they have killed you? Don't tell yourself you got killed out there. You will never get what you want in life if you keep taking away your power and weakening yourself. Another thing to consider is spending time with really good company. People who choose their words wisely. Because the metaphors people use and the language people use gets stuck in your head, and it becomes the fabric of your future thoughts and words. It spreads like a virus, disempowering language. You ever notice how you hang out with somebody who swears and you're almost tempted to swear more? Absolutely. So, keep good company. Choose your words carefully, because with the words you choose, you literally create your reality. Words have a magical power of creation to them. What words could you try to intentionally incorporate into your everyday language that could have an uplifting effect? What substitute words? That's the power of learning to harness this stuff. It directs cosmic energy, our word choices. Words really are a creative force. Let there be light. Let there be raccoons. One, two, three. Friends forever.